Okay, video number 3 in the basement ceiling project. And as you can see, the sheetrock is up on the ceiling. It's been up for a couple days. And I'm getting my head ready for taping. Not quite ready yet. I did fill the gaps, so we'll let that dry a day or two maybe, and then start the taping job. Very proud of what we accomplished here. There was a lot of unknowns that I'll go into a little bit, but I'm most happy with, in the last video I showed the strapping and how I leveled out the 2x4s to give me a nice flat ceiling. And boy, now that the sheetrock is up, it does look very, very flat, even with 1/2 inch drywall. So I'm glad I went through and did all that, because nobody wants to look at a wavy ceiling. And then also, to that end, there's not a single butt joint in this entire job. Everything's a flat joint. And in order to do that, of course, I had to use a couple of 12-footers. In fact, this is a 12-footer, and then the one next to it, to the left of the screen. I used a 10-footer there, almost a full 12-footer. Had a cut for the angle there, a 12-footer. And another 10-footer, just because of this low corner. Otherwise, it's 8 feet from here across to the beam. But that's so what? I mean, in order to avoid butt joints and keep the flatness of the ceiling, I'm happy to do it. Another thing I'll mention right off the bat is there's the lights. These are brand new LED surface mounted lights. They're really nice. They're very bright. You can get these in any LED color. I got the cool blue. Of course, they're available in warm, more orange, like I had it in here before, but I prefer this. It's really looking bright here in my office now with the white ceiling, almost white, and the new lights. And I added one, so there's a total of 6 lights on the ceiling in this space, which I call my office. So I'm very pleased. I had to kind of finagle to get the lights. I needed the light to hang the drywall. So what I did is I put up a sheet. I had measured off where those lights were. I did the electrical prior to installing the drywall, so I just then cut with a hole saw after I mounted that sheet, and then reinstalled that particular light. It's real nice. It's plug and play. So once you install the electrical box, it has its own little connection that you can screw and unscrew to get the light in and out. So that was pretty easy. So for example, this 12-footer was the first sheet that I hung. It has 2 lights in it. So I just disconnected those 2. I used the light from the other 4 to raise the panel and to install it. As soon as it was up, I used the hole saw, measured off to the centers of where these lights were supposed to hang, and then they just are spring loaded and connect to the underside of the drywall. So the lights are really cool. So I mentioned a lot of unknowns. One of the unknowns was, could I actually handle, with me doing all the work, 12-foot sections of drywall on a ceiling? And that unknown is taken care of. Yes, I rented a drywall hoist from Home Depot, and we'll never do another drywall job without that. It is one awesome piece of equipment. It allowed me to maneuver heavy panels for quite a while until I got it just where I wanted it. And if you're using dead men or a helper, your time is limited before you have to start screwing that thing in. Especially this first piece, I wanted to make sure it was absolutely where I needed it to be. And then, of course, there's not a lot of maneuvering room, right? So unless you want to end up with inch gaps. So you're cutting the drywall piece and you're trying to fit it in. Of course, nothing's square. You don't want to keep raising and lowering it, so you end up doing the best you can. You get very little room to work with. And of course, my door casing takes up on both sides of this piece, for example. I had to maneuver around the door casing, but it was easy. With the drywall hoist, you can actually kind of cantilever, or cant, I should say, one side of it while it's up on the lift, get over one of the casings and then raise it a little bit more and then do the other. So it worked out. So unknown number one was solved. Yes, you can do this by yourself with a drywall hoist, and even 12-footers, so you can eliminate butt joints and keep your ceiling nice and flat, which is what I wanted to do. Other unknown was, could I get the darn machine or lift into my car? I'm one of the few home renovators that don't have a truck. So I have my Ford Fusion sedan. We could put the seats down. That's how I brought all the lumber here for this job. But the drywall hoist is a big thing. And yes, that unknown was taken care of. I didn't know when I went over to Home Depot to get it whether I could fit it in the car, but I got it in. I did have to take it off its little dolly that it comes with and then put it into the vehicle piece by piece. It comes in 3 sections, and it's really easy to assemble. So that was another unknown. The other thing is how to get the panels themselves, the drywall home. So I didn't want to pay an $80 delivery charge. And, when I did the renovation of the basement 2 or 3 years ago, I paid the delivery fee, which is fine. But the guy wrecked my drywall. Frankly, I had to do a lot of repair of the sheets. They must have, haphazardly threw it on and then maybe, damaged it with a forklift. So I had all kinds of extra work I had to do. I could have sent it back, but I was anxious to get the job started. Well, this time around, I said, I'm going to avoid the delivery fee. I'm going to try to rent Home Depot's flatbed. But I didn't know what the dimensions are. Well, I'm here to tell you it's 10 feet, meaning those 12-footers just stuck out the back 2 feet, and it was very safe to drive with that. Just bring yourself a ratcheting tie down and then rent the vehicle. Cost $20 for an hour. I got the whole thing done in half an hour. Had the truck back and got all my sheets here. Really, the only help I needed was I needed to get the 12-footers and 10-footers downstairs. This is the basement. There's the door that leads up the stairs. So I had a friend help me offload the sheets. I mean, I can't at least lift them by myself, but if you can, fine. So, I mentioned that 90% of the job I did all the work myself. Well, it's not true. With the drywall hoist, you still got to lift the panel up onto the hoist itself, and it's about a 4-foot high lift that you need to do in order to get it up onto the lift, and then it sits at an angle. The drywall has these two little hangers that you have to mount the piece on, and then you tip the thing 90 degrees for lifting it straight up to the ceiling. So I had to have my wife and my daughter come down and help me lift 12-footers onto this thing, but we were able to manage. I got on one side, they got on the other, and with the 3 of us, we were able to mount that onto the hoist with no problem. Once I had it up on the hoist, my helpers were there to help me guide it into place, and they were very helpful doing that because it's always good to have another pair of eyes or 2. So it looks good. As of today, like I said, I filled in my gaps. As you can see, I had some gaps. See, there's a pretty decent sized gap there. I had some challenges here, but this one was particularly big. This is over a 1/2 inch here. So I had to use some fiberglass tape to hold the joint compound up in there. But everything looks good, and almost ready for taping. So I will take another video after I tape. The plan is, I know this is getting real long. The plan now is to tape, but then use sputter gun.